Have you ever wondered why some houses have mirrors placed in specific spots? Can a mirror really block evil? And what happens if you remove it? I never believed in such things until something terrifying happened to me. This eerie experience took place in my hometown, Kaisu Village, back in 1997. I was only 6 years old when my family moved into a new house. The house was large, with 4 big rooms, but it had been abandoned for some time and felt unsettling. That day, we spent hours cleaning the house. I was exhausted and wanted to sleep, but my parents continued tidying up. My mother carried a bag of trash outside when she suddenly stopped in her tracks. A strange feeling washed over her, as if something was watching her. Then, she noticed a small mirror hanging on the wall. There's an old belief that mirrors are placed in certain spots to ward off spirits. My mother had heard stories about this, and the mirror gave her an eerie feeling. She asked my father to take it down, but my father, exhausted from the day's work, didn't think much of it and left it there. That night, something chilling happened. My mother woke up suddenly, shivering from an icy wind. When she opened her eyes, she realized something was very wrong. We weren't in our beds. Somehow, we were all sleeping in the yard. Panic set in. My mother immediately looked toward the mirror inside the house. Was it because of that mirror? What exactly happened? She was drenched in cold sweat and woke my father up. I too was shaken awake. My father, sensing something strange, decided to remove the mirror. He grabbed a cloth, covered it, and took it down. After that, the eerie feeling seemed to disappear. My parents thought that was the end of it, but I was still uneasy, so the next night, I decided to sleep in their room. That night, something even more terrifying happened. My father, restless, got up to check all 4 rooms. Everything seemed normal, so he went back to bed. But later, he was startled awake by a voice. When he opened his eyes, he saw me standing a short distance away. He thought I was sleepwalking, until he realized something horrifying. My mother was also standing in the same trance-like state. The 3 of us had unknowingly walked out of the house again. It was as if we were being led outside by some unseen force. At that moment, I finally spoke, my voice trembling. I told my parents what I had seen while sleeping. A strange voice had woken me up. When I opened my eyes, I saw a beautiful young girl floating in the air. She looked about 10 years old, with a sorrowful yet eerie presence. Though she didn't move her lips, I could hear her voice calling me. At first, her tone was soft, almost pleading, but as I ignored her, she became furious. Her voice grew louder, angrier, more desperate. Her once beautiful face twisted into something terrifying. She screamed at us to leave. The force of her anger was so strong that my parents, still in their trance, began to walk out of the house like lifeless puppets. Terrified, I followed them, not daring to speak or stop them. The ghostly girl hovered behind us, her presence filling me with dread. Just as we stepped outside, my body suddenly weakened and I collapsed to the ground. I watched in horror as the ghost girl stared at us, her expression changing. She was no longer angry. She simply gazed at us, and then, slowly, she faded into the night. The next morning, we told the villagers what had happened. Some believed the girl's spirit was tied to the house, unable to leave. Others said the previous owners were criminals who had harmed their own child before fleeing. Another story suggested they had left to avoid authorities after the child died. To this day, no one knows the truth. But one thing is certain. I will never forget that haunted house, the cursed mirror, and the ghostly girl who warned us to leave. Would you dare to sleep in that house? Let me know in the comments.